Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Bump Draft and Pray podcast. I am your host, Pedro Barbosa, and with me you have a huge teddy bear on the background. And in front of him,
teddy bear.
and in front of him, we have Earl Goddard. Hello, Earl. How are you?
Hello, mate. Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. Excited to talk about F1?
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on at the minute, isn't there?
Yeah, we're going to go there later, and our little, let's say, thoughts on what's really happening, because it's been chaotic with the news today. Exactly today, we chose a good date to make a podcast, actually. But before that, let's quickly let's round up the rest of the teams from our season review. We already reviewed in the previous podcast the P10 until P6. So now we will review the top 5, which was, at least interesting fight for P4 and for P2. But we're not going to talk exactly about that now, because we already talked about that on the last round. But let's talk individually about our P5 team, which was McLaren. Yeah, a weird one, I think, for them.
Yeah, expected more. I think is what you could.
It's hard because the ones that ended up fighting for P4 were McLaren and Alpine, and they were both teams kind of an upwards trajectory in the last season. So they were going to meet up at some point, but it wasn't how we imagined it to be, because McLaren scored almost all of their points with one driver, because Lando scored 122 out of 159 points for McLaren. So yeah, I don't know which was the case, if it's just Lando being an OP driver and wiping the floor with Danny Rick,
Yeah, I mean, I think if they'd had another driver that was more consistently in the points, then they would have probably been where we expect them to be, or a slightly higher positioning. But the fact that, like you say, Lando's had to pull in all the points himself, pretty much. Yeah, it's a difficult one with them.
Yeah, because there's two ways that you could actually think about it. It was Lando taking the car to places it shouldn't, and that's until a certain point it was kind of true, because he was, even in the beginning of the year where the car wasn't really good, because they started the season very badly with very high amounts of porpoising, but with a slower car, not like Mercedes that actually had a decent platform, but just not that top platform like the Red Bull, but also had massive problems with porpoising, but could actually run the car with that. So McLaren just raised the car a lot to avoid the porpoising, because they couldn't really deal with it at that time. And actually Lando was the only driver out of the top 3 teams that got a podium, so we could actually say that he almost overachieved this season, considering the car that he had.
Yeah, he outperformed the car.
Yeah, but saying that, Danny Rick dropped the ball massively these 2 years, and this year I think it was even worse than last year. Even if you take out the win at Monza last year, I think this year was really, really bad.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So, yeah, it might have been the case that McLaren would be able to get before easily with a driver. I don't want to say a more consistent driver, because I don't consider Daniel to be a non-consistent driver. He was always in his until getting McLaren, he was always a very consistent driver. But let's say that a driver not suited to the car, let's put it like that, and wasn't able to be consistent. Yeah. So yeah,
we all know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's kind of tiring to making excuses for Daniel. It's not like Lance that sometimes you make excuses, but you know that underneath the driver, although a decent driver and you could say deserving of an F1 seat. At this point, you're always going to have, every time in history, you're going to have drivers that are not as good as you could get somewhere else in F1, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, you'll have paid drivers. Simple.
Yeah, simple like that. And he's a paid driver. Yeah, a paying driver. He pays for his seat. But yeah, it's easy to just stop making excuses for him. While Daniel, we all know, is a Grand Prix winner. He could, especially in those top years at Red Bull, if he had a better car, he could have won the championship back then. I think so. So yeah, you get tired of making excuses for him, but at the same time, when you know the talent that is underneath, you kind of
excuse me. We'll see. We'll soon. I know it's a bad one today. We'll soon find out where he's at with Red Bull when he goes there as third driver. Because if he's not anywhere up near Sergio or Max, then he's lost it. He's going to have to be on pace straight away, and then everyone can go, okay, he just didn't click with the McLaren, he's all good. But if he's nowhere near the pace, that's it.
That will
hurt it.
How much being driving other cars will prevent him, even if it's still there? How much that will prevent him to just click with the car? And because the Red Bull must have changed over the years until from one.
No doubt.
But he was a good driver at Renault as well. He was able to get to grips with that car. So yeah.
And he was quick from the start. So I think it'll be, not that we want to keep going on about Danny and Rick, but I think that'll be the one. If he's not quick in that Red Bull straight away, with like the first couple of tests, then everyone's just going to be like, no.
Just go to IndyCar.
Not starting that again.
Yeah.
That position.
Yeah, we are not shy of saying that he should be there, but yeah, he's the one who knows what is best for him, and let's not kid ourselves. He doesn't need motorsports or any form of racing to be as rich as he is, because he has a lot of ventures outside of Formula One. But yeah, we would like to see him there. I think the States, we're exactly, let's go, because we're going to spend half an hour talking about Danny Rick in IndyCar. So yeah, so above McLaren with 173 points, it's Alpine, and I heard actually today someone say that it was actually a good year for Alpine, and the best thing that could have actually happened for them, because, and I agree with this part, the car was a good car. Yeah, quick car, probably most days faster, or if not almost all days faster than the McLaren, and they just had a poor reliability, but more towards the end of the year. They had a few problems in the beginning of the year, but it was not as bad as in the last part of the year, I think.
No, they just had engine issues at the end, didn't they? And that can come down to a batch of parts. It can come down to...
Actually, I think it was water pump. They did...
So engine.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But it apparently it's, to solve it, you needed to completely redesign that whole system, and that involved, and they will be able to do that for next year. But it will involve a completely redesign of that whole system, and you have to redesign some part of the ICE as well to solve that. So yeah, they had problems with the water pump, and that showed in Singapore. Singapore is very humid and very hot, and probably very hard on the cooling of the car.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it shows you there that there's something there. But it's the thing that they are not shy of saying that they were a bit more, they took more risks with the engine this year, and because they had to homologate, every engine manufacturer had to homologate basically their package for,
base engine.
Yeah, the base package until 2026, and basically the only thing that they can do is reliability problem solving. I know they will mask that and mask upgrades and engine upgrades as reliability ones. Everyone does that. But yeah, so their thinking was, let's be risky with the power unit, and then let's fix it. And they they haven't done a few of the quality control, or that you can call it, or verification of the systems, just because they went ahead and did the design that was predicted to be here 2024, I think, for 2022.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's kind of paid off. Next year is going to be a good one for them. At least I expect.
Yeah, well, yeah, they finished fourth, and yeah, good. Yeah. Better than you would have expected. I think Alonso also dragged a lot of results out for them.
Yeah.
As the old Jack Russell does.
Yeah. He hasn't lost much. I'm not a fan, but love him or hate him, but the boy can drive a car very well. And it's just when you listen to the stuff that he's doing during a race and making notes of what other race people's strategies are doing, and you can see that, they say, he might not be likable, but very, very good driver, very clever. Yeah, he only turns unlikable when
not going his way.
But not only that, because in the beginning of the year, he was, even with Ocon, the rivalry was there, and they were bitter rivals, as we all saw in Brazil. But I think he was toning it down a lot more than when he had his future at Aston Martin, just basically all spread out for him. And then he started to sulk. Yeah.
Didn't care.
Didn't really care, so he just did everything in his power to try and bring down the team. And you could actually see, and then when he had the problem with Stroll at the Circuit of Americas, he didn't complain a lot. He almost didn't complain about the move of Stroll, and you could see that he was saying the right things for his future employers and not his current ones. Let's put it like that.
Well, it's all about the dollars. It's all about the dollars.
What about Ocon? What did you think about this season?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
He was... Yeah, he was in Formula 1. Did a couple of nice moves that was the last round.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, just he was definitely in Formula 1. I know that much.
Oh, the thing is, he actually outscored Alonso. Okay, and even with problems, and he had his fair share of reliability problems, and some of them some races he was nursing problems and trying to bring the car home. And we don't actually know every time that it's working, so that's happening. So he might have some muted races just because of that, and because he isn't as vocal as Alonso on that part, we might not know the whole story. But yeah, it's Alonso. We know that he had very good races, and he almost got pole in Australia, and with an Alpine, like he had 2 purple sectors, and when the hydraulics failed and he crashed really badly and hurt himself, although he did the race. But yeah, it's weird when you have 2 drivers, one beat the other, and you get the impression that the driver that got beat was amazing this season and the other one was meh.
Power of Alonso.
Yeah. PR, but let's face it, the man is special. He's a special boy, a special man. He's the oldest driver on the grid, but still racking up the results that he wants out of the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Alpine. I'm predicting good things for them next year, but let's not forget that Renault has done this every time that they say it's going to be in 5 years and next year is going to get better, and then they have a muted year. Let's see if the new structure that they have is able to bring them what they want.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah,
Ocon and Gasly together.
Yeah, that one as well. I'm seeing the explosions on T1 first race.
Fireworks.
Yeah. I'm really not seeing that pairing going well. I'm not, to be honest.
No, I think as much as they're friends, both from the same.
Very good friends. They were like 15 years ago.
They were, but I don't.
They fell out with each other. They don't even talk about that.
They're either going to make up and be besties, and it's all going to be great, or it's going to be fucking horrible. And one of them will be out at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to predict it's going to be 100 times worse than Magnussen and Hülkenberg. And that's saying a lot. Because those two don't really like each other as well.
Yeah, no,
The whole
it's
suck
going to be
my balls.
Drive to Survive is going to be great.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. Don't say that, please. Okay, so that's Alpine P4. Yeah, it could have been better, but I think it was the best that they could realistically expect from this season. A new regulation is not going to. Normally, it doesn't really change the whole spectrum of the teams. Normally, you have one team that gets it right and dominates, which we had. It was only that this time the team that got it and dominated was one of the teams that was fighting for the championship last year or the previous season. Unlike 09, that Braun came along and wiped, at least in the beginning of the year, wiped the floor with everyone. They had an amazing design, and Red Bull then took the mantle of their success, even in 09, even though Braun won both championships. But Red Bull was an outsider back then as well, so this time it didn't happen. No. So the next team, the Dolphin of the grid, the Mr. Purposing, the W13, the car that it was so OP and so good this year that iRacing launched it without saying anything about it.
Yeah.
Team wise, let's not. Yeah, we can talk about the car, but team wise,
I think they did well to come back to where they were. Where they were, considering how they started the season. They've maximised their potential. Where if their car was a P5 car, Mr. P5 George was putting it there, so they were getting 100% out of what they had, which I think is more than some of the other teams did. They've clawed it back to winning a race, which I honestly didn't think they would be capable of winning a race.
And they were generally the fastest team, the fastest car on the grid at Brazil.
Yeah, and they've done the work. What they've done, fuck knows, but they got up there. So I think team-wise, it was also good to see that they didn't just crumble, because let's not forget they've won 8 constructors titles and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they did very well to hold station, believe in their, especially when they brought out the zero side pod. Another little innovation that they like to do in innovation every year, don't they? And I must say, I'm not sure if I'm convinced whether I like it or not.
I hate it. I hate it.
It just doesn't look how a car should look, but
it looks like that side pod looks like a horse that was left outside alone for 2 years or 3 years without food. You know, when you see those horrible images of so thin horses that...
Yeah, but then I suppose that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but it looks so bad. I was so happy that wasn't a OP innovation and everyone was going to follow it. Oh man, I really don't like it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So team-wise, I think they did well to get back to being a front-running team by the end of the year.
They say that they have a inherent problem with the car that isn't the zero side pod, and they didn't. I heard an interview with their technical director, which it's a new guy. It's new for this year. It's the first car that he's technical director. I don't remember the name. I don't really remember the name. Because James Halls has gone up to he has a new role inside the team. He has moved up.
they just change names all the time, don't they?
Yeah. So, but how shit must your car be that you notice that flaw in a pouring rain day, pouring with rain and with tires that are not going to be the ones. So I'm talking about the filming day that they did in horrible conditions, and they knew that they had a serious problem like the first lap that the car went out. I mean, I would very much like to know what really is the problem. They won't tell us, of course, because they don't want. Yeah, it's obvious that they won't tell us, but yeah, it must be something really big. And being able to turn around the season like they did, was kind of impressive. But let's forget that team has 9 world championships, not 8. Because yeah, and it's 2 major manufacturers that had that team. It was Honda, and then it was Mercedes. So yeah, it's not just any team on the grid. But yeah, it was nice to see that they could come back from that. Actually,
yeah, I think we leave it there and don't talk about the drivers before we upset people.
No, let's talk at least about George. I was never a big fan of George, but yeah, that boy showed why everyone that knows him says he's special this year, I think. Yeah, it was very impressive for me. I knew that he was very good, and he would be able to match Lewis sometimes during the year. But yeah, being that consistent in I know he drove a lot the old one, even in the sim and all that stuff, and he's a Mercedes man for a long time. But yeah, it's running every day the same car and against a 7-time world champion. Yeah, it's impressive. Let's be honest.
The pressure on him would have been huge.
Yeah, imagine the pressure of fighting with your 7-time world champion teammate in Brazil to win the race. The only race that Mercedes won of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes some balls, let's say.
I was so happy he won it. I was so happy he won it.
We were doing so well, and then he just drops the ball.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I was happy as well.
There's that little bit of, it's a shame to see Lewis lose his run of winning a Grand Prix every year for the last 48 million years. But, everything comes to an end eventually. But yeah, it was just nice to see that George did it, and I think cements him in that car for the distinct future.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest. I totally respect Lewis. I don't like him, but I respect him a lot. But if I was at Mercedes, screw that 8th championship. George is a megastar for the future. And you after this year, you really have to nurture his potential. And because, yeah, he's a very special boy. Very special boy. And you have to nurture and bank on that guy as soon as you can, because the future is not that certain, and
he's about 25 million cheaper than.
Yeah, and let's put it in simpler ways. You could, let's say, bank on Lewis, and it doesn't happen, and Lewis just goes away, and you're making a car for one guy, because you're always going to develop the car more towards one than the other. If you go for both of them at the same time, you might, unless they have a very similar driving style, and I'm not sure that they really have, you're better judge than me.
I don't think so, no.
So I don't see what they gain with Unless it's PR to have given Lewis his 8th championship. I don't see where else you can get, because for the future you gain way more banking on George and getting him to be a world champion in the future.
Yeah, there'll be a huge PR thing about him getting number 8.
But for the future of the team, do you really think that it's...
Oh, no, not for the future of the team. I mean, it will help, but I don't think... I think, I agree with you. It's all about George, and Lewis is going to do what Lewis is going to do, and I wouldn't be surprised if he turns around one day and goes, "That's it, I'm off."
Yeah.
And he has the ability to do that.
Yeah, we have to say one thing. We have to give credit to Mercedes for allowing them to fight, because they actually allowed them to fight during the season. It was not so clear, the team orders and all that stuff. They allowed George to go on a different strategy at Zandvoort, a call that George made, but they allowed him to do it and risk giving the better strategy to George, because that's what they did, and that of course upset a little bit Lewis, because Lewis was in front. But yeah, they took the risk of that and took it on the show.
A lot of those times, it's been, like you say, it's been George who's been calling his own strategy and saying, "I want to do this."
Yeah,
and they do the same with Lewis when he goes, "I don't want tyres," or "I do want tyres," and yada yada. So yeah, fair play to him for that. But yeah, all of those calls have been George. It's not like the team have gone, "We'll give the strategy to him."
Yeah, but even allowing him to go on a different strategy than Lewis, I think it's a good thing.
Progress.
Yeah, it's progress, and it shows that they have faith in George. So let's see for the future. They still have time to focus on George and not screw anything for the future, because the thing that you could get is lack of interest in Mercedes or anyone if the team doesn't perform. And I'm not saying that it's Lewis that's not going to perform, but I think it's easier for them to continue supporting the team if your star driver is going to continue there for the future, and not a driver that has 7 championships and can just go away like this, and the team is left with a car suited for a driver that's not going to be there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my point, and apparently you say I'm right.
Agree, yeah,
I'm right. You agree with me. So yeah, next one is the team from the front runners. I think it was the team that, I don't want to say that they disappointed me, because they finished where they were kind of, or above what they hoped for last year, or what their plans were. But yeah, with the car that they started, it was kind of disappointing to see them just going backwards during the year, and that's Ferrari.
Has anyone found them yet? Because they turned up to Brazil, but they were missing for about 3 months. Don't they? They just...
Yes, apparently some Swiss guy found them. Is he Swiss? What is Vasseur? Is Swiss or French?
I think for Swiss.
For Swiss. The first Swiss has found them.
Yeah, I think it's the usual thing with Ferrari, and it's the bit your man's going to struggle with. There is, they expect them to win, irrespective of how good the car is, how anything.
And
Ferrari.
Support they gave him, to be honest.
Yeah, and so Charles was driving well at the start of the year. Made quite a few mistakes, more than I would expect from him.
Especially in France, where he crashed all alone.
Yeah, and then sort of lost his head a bit, and at the same time, Carlos just seemed to plug away and I don't know, get the car to how he liked it. He just seemed to slowly build through the season, and then he was OP at the end of it.
Yeah,
to the point you'd be questioning why would you be favouring Charles over him?
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird because Carlos was, even with strategy, okay, I am one of those that says that apart from a couple of races, Ferrari strategy was not that off the mark. I mean, they made some bad decisions, but you could justify almost all of them. It was just that it was very close which decision you had to take. I'm not talking about, of course, Hungary. Everyone saw that the hard tires were not working and they put Charles on them, and it was the wrong decision. But a couple of decisions, it was the strategy to make. Silverstone was the strategy to make because they couldn't pit, if I remember correctly, they weren't able to pit and take advantage of the safety car with Charles, but they were with Sainz, so they pitted Sainz. So everyone's saying, oh, what a bad strategy call from Ferrari on Charles, but I think he wasn't able to pit because I think it was already past.
It already passed it, yeah.
So it wasn't really, but I think a lot of little things like this one during the year made it so that it got taken a little bit out of proportion, in my opinion. I mean, they made some bad strategies. I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm not going to sit here with a straight face and tell you that they were perfect. They weren't. But I don't think it was that bad. It was not like every race they were making a huge error. But yeah, but yeah. I got lost in my point. My point was that Carlos was able to juggle the Ferrari decisions versus the suggestions that he was making strategy-wise, because he's in the car and he's feeling the car and he can actually make some decisions. I think he got the balance right. While Carlos lost faith in the team when he probably shouldn't, and then created some big problems for the Ferrari strategists from that part on. I'm talking about he got screwed with the hard tires in Hungary and then got to Monza, and Ferrari strategists were even that, like, it was like they were going to be hanged if they even just suggested hard tires for Charles. So it's created a weird vibe within the team, I think, and it's actually, I think it was prejudicial.
Just on one side of the garage.
Yeah. And Carlos danced around that perfectly, in my opinion. He was not always on pace with Charles, and probably because the car didn't suit him as well as Charles. But yeah, he was the guy to bank on, I think, this year. If his performance was like 6 rounds earlier, because in the beginning of the year it was nowhere, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Pace.
And he also did have a few reliability issues, didn't he?
Yeah. And he had a few reliability.
He had all the bad luck of Ferrari, where Charles just, reliability wise, he didn't have any issues. It was always really Carlos that was the one stopping.
I'm going to say it now. Carlos Sainz Jr. is the most underrated driver on the F1 grid, I think.
100%.
Yeah. He's a I think he's one of those special boys that it's just seen as being kind of good. And I don't know if it's because he's son of who he is son of, and if that kind of plays against him, because he's Carlos Sainz, but he's not the Carlos Sainz that we all know about. Even young guys know about Carlos Sainz, the legend that is Carlos Sainz Sr. And they are so alike that it's crazy. They are like a copy of each other.
I think he seems. I think people woke up to how good he is when he was on pace with Lando at McLaren, and everyone was like, Lando's this next big thing, and they expected him to essentially do what he's done to Danny Rick to Carlos, and Carlos was just there.
Yeah, and then he went to Ferrari, and in the first year beat Leclerc. So
exactly, it was like, okay, Lando rates him. I know they're mates and all, but Lando rates him. So
yeah, if you're that good, you have been his teammate for 2 years, you can actually judge quite well how he is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with your opinion. I think Ferrari
next year is going to be interesting.
Yeah. If the cars retain the same characteristics, yeah, it's going to be interesting because he's not going to come as far back from Leclerc as he was this year, in the beginning of this year. And we know that cars bring old characteristics back, because even though we had a huge regulation change, the McLaren still had the same characteristics apparently. At least that's what both Lando and Danny Rick say about the new car. So even though the car seems to be completely new, it's mostly the same people designing it and building it, so there might be a few little characteristics on the car that continue from one car to the other. So yeah, I'm expecting it to be closer. I don't know if they are going to implode inside the team. I know they have kind of a good relationship, Leclerc and Sainz, but when they start to really fight on track for something more than a few points and not a championship position, I think it will become a little bit more bitter. Yeah, but I'm excited to see that. Actually, it's one of those that I'm excited to see. And the team that there's no question who is the boss and who is allowed the best strategy and the best parts and everything shiny and new is Red Bull.
And he's got the OP contract, doesn't he?
Yeah. He even ran a previous floor because it suited him better and it was a bit faster than Sergio. But I think that was Sergio's call by the middle until the end of the year, because he wanted to do something different. God knows why.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. So Red Bull, they dominated from the middle of the year, at least.
It's sort of, again, what we've expected. We expected them to turn up, and notoriously they have issues at the start of the season and then slowly play catch up. But this year they sort of had the reliability and pace.
They had a couple of reliability problems on the first 2 or 3 races. Bahrain?
Nothing.
No, nothing that.
But nothing that, not like previous where they weren't finishing races. So
apart from Bahrain.
Yeah, one. But yeah, when you go from that and they've suddenly now got that head start compared to what they used to have, and then once Max hit his stride and they got those few upgrades, it was just see you later. They were gone.
Apparently they say that the massive amount of upgrades that they brought was bring the weight down and being able to put ballast where they wanted. That was the main thing that they say it was the best thing for the car. I think they were massively overweight. Yeah, and it worked very well.
Fuck, it doesn't matter if it was just moving a sticker. Whatever they did, it fucking worked.
At least with one car.
But then again, how much was Sergio being given the same equipment as Max? Was he on B-spec floors? Was he on not the new stuff?
No, he was actually. It was actually the other way around. Sergio had the new floor.
Yeah, but were they not let him have the old floor?
I don't know. The story that comes outside is that he chose that floor. That it suited his driving style, but it was slower. They admitted it was slower.
But if you think to the budget cap and they've made these new floors, so they can't go back and start making new old floors. So Max gets the OP floors and Sergio gets these. So
yeah,
and it's not like they were close to the cap or anything. So yeah, I think they were pretty much what I expected.
Even
they
in the beginning of the year, before the year started, because everyone was talking about Red Bull because they brought more upgrades in the end of 2021 that they were going to be behind the schedule for 2022, but it was basically the opposite. Mercedes dropped the ball and not Red Bull.
Yeah, they did. They sort of did what I expected to be in terms of pace. They obviously sorted out their earlier in the season sort of issues that they notoriously have. The difference is they didn't have Mercedes who were firing on all cylinders from the start. You know, they've always gone up in a season against a team that is singing. You know, they're on all full chat. And they're playing catch up, where this season Mercedes' car wasn't working, so all of a sudden they didn't have that competitor that was right there pushing them, which I think made them look better than they probably were, but at the same time,
yeah, I think Max as well was a had a big part of making them look a lot better than they were, I think. And let's not kid ourselves. Yeah, they have the penalty for next year, but I actually don't think that it will play that much. It will play against them. It's going to be harder for them. But when you have a what is Adrian Newey is a technical director. I don't know what a
he's chief designer, chief technical director.
He's the god of that team, because he is one of those few that can actually visualize airflow without doing any CFD or wind tunnel tests. So yeah, when you have, I feel like having Adrian Newey in your team is like on any game these days, paying for win to win. To be honest,
that's exactly what Red Bull did.
Yeah,
it's like if you want to win the championship, these are the people you need, and give me the money, and that's what the Horner did.
Yeah, paid off massively.
And you sit there and you go, they're paying nearly 100 million a year. How much are they getting back by winning championships?
Oh, massively.
That's all.
They do everything that they can to keep Newey in, letting him go to road cars. They let him do whatever he wants, and if I was in their place, I would do exactly the same thing. I don't care if you want to go and play racquetball for 10 months. Just be here next year.
Just design the car, mate. That's all we care about.
Yeah, and he actually goes and goes to the races and is there watching what the car is doing, and it's
like you said, he can look at a car and know what the aero is doing, which means he can look at the other cars and see what the aero is doing. So it's definitely someone that you want in your team.
He's the special boy of designers, let's say. Yeah, that man is gold, and Horner knows it. And he actually enjoys to be there. It actually looks like that. He enjoys the
still a racer.
Yeah, and he is really a racer. He likes to drive a car. He likes to drive his cars.
He likes to crash his cars as well.
That Leighton house it's a beauty. Let's say, just to say.
So tiny. Tiny.
Have you seen it up close?
We built one years back. Record. But yeah, I sat in one of them, and I struggled to fit in it in terms of width of shoulders. It's so tiny.
Mansell will not fit in it.
No. I don't think even his moustache would fit in it.
He has a moustache back now. So
he's rekindling the days.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, no, there's a whole different beast. Those were tiny little car.
Yeah, and he actually got out and took those principles and brought them to Williams. So yeah, he actually says that. What was it? The 1992 car, which was the first one that he designed for Williams, and they won the championship. Was not 1991 or 1992?
92 Prost.
92, yeah, Prost with the and he actually says that most of that car is just Leighton House, but refined, make it work, make the refined
with a proper engine.
Yeah, with a proper engine and having the money to solve the initial problems that he had with his vision, and that's the Leighton House car. So when you pick that up and you put into a dying team that was Jaguar or Ford or Jaguar or whatever you want to say that it was before Red Bull, and run 1 or 2 years with the old car just so that you can design a good car for 09. It was masterstroke. And to think that Ron Dennis, firstly, Williams didn't want to give him the shares of the company, and that's why he went to McLaren, and then Ron Dennis didn't want to pay him more in McLaren. How much of a fool he felt after that.
Yeah, I think he probably would have left anyway, wouldn't he?
Yeah, eventually. I don't think that's Ron's way of running the team and Adrian's old school kind of way of doing stuff back then would actually be a good partnership in the long run. He was there for a few years, but I think in the last 2-3 years he was already with his head out of the.
Yeah, he had checked out and was just going through the motions.
Yeah. So that was the championship, both championships winning team. They won by a landslide. It was not even a contest in the end of the year. Until the middle of the year, it was kind of there or thereabouts with Ferrari. But the modular design that Ferrari had, that they could actually bring stuff from other teams, and that thing didn't work because they dropped the ball from middle of the year until the end of the year. They kind of had most times they had the quicker car on qualifying, but in the race it was nowhere to be seen. Max walked it. And so he got the most wins ever in a single season.
Yep.
Did he get 15 or 16 in the end?
I want to say
other-
15.
Yeah,
I want to
think
say
so.
15.
I think so because it was 15 because the record prior to that was 13 and he got 2 more, so that makes it 15. Okay, so that was our review. Now, I'm okay. Team. yeah. This is a very relaxed episode, let's say. So, news today just got after Mattia Binotto got out of Ferrari, and the official reports that we have was that he just got out. He but said he wanted out. So that got everyone thinking that maybe really the rumors that Vasseur was going to come to Ferrari were true, and that came in. That basically was it. Vasseur, was it 2 days ago that got out? I don't actually remember. It was yesterday. Yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. We are on the Monday, the 13th. The Tuesday, sorry. 13th.
Yeah, Tuesday.
So Monday, the 12th of December, Vasseur was firstly announced that he was going to be out of Alfa Romeo, that now is everyone is calling Sauber, although they are still Alfa Romeo, and went to Ferrari. This morning, the first news that we had from Formula One was that US Capital was getting out of Williams, and that is still a mystery for me. I don't really get it. I don't know what's happening there.
He's either been sacked or is about to be sacked, so he's running.
Yeah, I don't understand this. What I don't understand is the why. That's basically.
Because the people that own Williams want to win and make money, because at the end of the day, they're all in there to make money, and they're not winning.
Yeah, but you can't make money while getting onto a winning phase. You have to spend money.
Yeah, but these aren't people that follow motorsport. These are people that follow dollars, and they're doing this because of money. They don't understand the sport or that side of it. So that is where you'll have a problem.
Yeah, I maintain that I don't really understand it. No, Vasseur was today. I'm just seeing. It was today as well.
Okay.
So this was all today. Vasseur got out and went to Ferrari. Then US Capital got out. And that's...
We'll find out soon.
We will find out soon who is going to be Williams' team principal. We still don't know. But yeah, that got out. Then it was announced that Andreas Seidel was out of McLaren, and that caught me off guard.
Yeah, massively
off guard. Then he was announced as Sauber Group CEO, and that made a lot of sense suddenly. Just because, you can talk.
Yeah, it was a bit very musical chairs very quickly, but yeah.
So
wasn't expecting it, but like you say, when it happened, when it was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, because the Alfa Romeo logo even comes in the breaking news. It's almost a meme right now, the breaking news thing from Formula One. But he was appointed CEO of Sauber, not Alfa Romeo, and that tells us a lot because the Sauber Group is now currently almost in its entirety owned by Audi, that it's coming back to Formula One in 2026. And Andreas is a guy that has had very good success with that's called a Volkswagen Group brand in motorsports. He was in Porsche, wasn't he? In the LMP1.
Yeah, massively in Porsche. And now if you look with Porsche not coming into Formula One.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense for Audi to just go and get him and pull him in Sauber.
Well, VW moving from one office to the next.
Yeah. So...
And you look at what he's done at McLaren, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next year with McLaren now that they don't have him. Yeah. I don't know who this new fella is.
It's Andrea Stella. He was, if I'm not mistaken, he came to McLaren with Alonso. And he was his engineer, if I'm not mistaken, when he came to McLaren. And then when Alonso got out, he stayed, and I don't know what was his job description now, but he got up, he ranked up in McLaren from when Zach Brown took over the as CEO of McLaren. So he's pretty much right now a McLaren man. He was with Alonso at Ferrari when Alonso was at Ferrari and moved to McLaren with Alonso.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he manages it and what he's capable of getting out of the team. Because obviously, we'll go with surnames here. But Seidel's obviously very good.
Yeah, let's go with last names. Because one is Andreas and the other is Andrea.
But yeah, Seidel's very good at what he has in his experience of maximising teams' potentials. So yeah, I think that's one to watch.
Yeah, I don't know if you watch much of the what's it called, McLaren Unscripted or what it's called. They release it in the end of every weekend, and it kind of when you see images of the debriefs after the race, you kind of always see Stella as being the main man there, like taking care of all the technical side. But obviously, like we talked about very much every time that we talk about Mattia Binotto, you being a good technical man doesn't mean you're going to be a good team principal. Although, I have to say, I don't actually think that Binotto was a problem in Ferrari, but we already talked about that in another episode. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but it kind of seems to, from what I've seen in the Unscripted or wherever it's called from McLaren, it seems to be a liked senior member of the team. So it's just a question if he has the right profile to lead a team in a team principal role.
Yeah.
So that's
what I'm sort of getting at.
Yeah, but I kind of like the move of just going with your own talent inside the team. I kind of understand it. Like so close to the beginning of the year, I kind of think it's actually a good idea to try it. Yeah, and of course they all know him much better than we do. He's been there since what was it, 2015? That Alonso went to McLaren. So yeah, he has been there for a lot of years. So he knows the team, of course. Obviously, he knows the team and has been going up through the ranks within the team. And yeah, he might have the right profile. He had the patience to get along with Alonso for so long that he must be a patient man.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that. So that means that we have one team without a team principal, and the musical chairs are going on, but we don't really know what's going to happen with Williams.
Toto back to Williams.
No. He actually was never team principal at Williams. He was just
Owned it.
Yeah, he owned
Just
part
had-
of it. Yeah.
Percentage of it.
Yeah, because team principal was always Frank Williams. Wasn't he? Even when Claire was there, officially the team principal was Frank.
Yeah.
So yeah, Total Wolf was never part of that. And then he owned shares in 2 teams. Which was weird for a bit.
Yeah, I think because he ended up giving his Williams shares to his wife,
Was it?
Susie.
Did Susie
Yeah.
got them?
Yeah, I think they did it that way. There was a bit of
Because she
bit of
was
jiggery
the
poker.
test driver at Williams at that time, wasn't she?
Yeah. Funny that.
No, of course she got there because of him.
Is that Susie Sproul?
This is not. I don't know Susie well, her career well enough to say if she was good or bad driver. I've heard some interviews, and she doesn't rate herself that good, to be honest. So I'm not I'm going to pass judgment to her. But yeah.
Not saying
it's
anything.
weird. Yeah, not going to touch it. Just going to say that her words, not mine. That she seemed not to rate herself that highly, or at least at that top level of F1. She even says that she wasn't good enough for F1, I think, and that's why she has been
Probably the smartest thing she could ever do.
Yeah. And has had kind of good results as being a team principal in Formula E. She is clearly a very sharp woman and very intelligent woman. So yeah, maybe she will be Williams' team principal. She got out of Formula E. She needs a job, so maybe it's not actually the worst idea ever.
It'd be cheap.
Or will it? I don't know. She has the money to live well. Let's see.
Exactly.
The Wolf family, of course, she's now Wolf as well. She got the last name from her husband. So yeah, we might see 2 Wolves as team principals next year. That would be funny.
One at the front, one at the back.
Oh man, you had to steer it that way. Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, that was basically the news. That there's not been anything else. It's just that this team principal kind of musical chairs that's going on. We're going into the Christmas part of the year, which is probably the only part of the year where like a big chunk of staff has like time off. I think they have been working very hard until now, and then probably it's going to wind down a little bit now in Christmas, and then coming full force for the beginning of the year, and we'll get new cars in January probably, because I think the first test is in February. I think this year starts very soon.
A bit early.
A bit earlier.
Well, they've got to fit the 400 races in, so they've got to start early.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our the second part of our season review and a few news. We covered every team. At least we didn't cover some of the more boring drivers. Sorry, but it's true. Or had more muted seasons. Let's say. Let's put it like that. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the this podcast. We're still checking what we're going to do, how his schedule is going to be the next couple of weeks. We might do like these 2 episodes, which was with a short break of 1 week. I think we deserve it. We've started. It was the first week that we didn't do a podcast since we started. So yeah, I think we kind of need to wind down. But we have a few podcasts ideas. We have a podcast with a very special guest that we have to book it now that we've done the last review of the season. And we'll announce it soon, very soon. So keep your eyes open in our social media, which is at Bomb Draft Prey in every social media app that you can find. bdappodcast@gmail.com for if you want to send us an email. Join our TWR Discord. If you don't know, we have me and Earl have a team together, and we do some races and championships there, which is TWR 3 Wide Racing. We're going to do 2 special events the next 2 weeks, just some crazy races. We'll announce it on the Discord, so if you're interested in that, click on the show notes. You have a link to our Discord there. I've been your host, Pedro Barbosa, and I've been joined with my good friend Earl Goddard. You can find him at Earl Goddard on Twitter, and his crazy antics about Lewis not being the greatest driver of all time. Shh, it's true. It's true. That's what he says. Everyone knows.
Not the greatest of all time.
No, Senna is the one for you. Isn't it?
Even potentially, I don't think he could be the greatest of his era. Yeah. I don't think he can do. I mean, we've got a whole new podcast on this, but I don't think he can do a greatest of all time.
I was hoping you.
I know. I don't know.
Maybe that's going to be the podcast next week.
We should, because it's like if you go MotoGP, Valentino, he's fucking amazing, but is he the greatest ever? If you go on all of he's the most winningest.
Let's put it. We're going to do this on a future podcast, but I'm just going to leave with a question for you not to answer. Are we talking about the fastest or the best world champion of all time? There's a difference there. The fastest and the one with most wins is not the best champion, because for you to be a good champion, you don't have to just win. There's other stuff around with that. Not racing related even. That could be. But we're going to discuss this on a future podcast. Yeah? Come on. Come on.
Yeah, we do that.
I'm seeing you almost exploding.
Yes, I get that. If you say the fastest champion, that goes without Casey. Fastest world champion.
I wasn't expecting that, but I kind of agree.
Because you look through everything that he did on that bike, particularly the Ducati. Valet went there, couldn't ride it. Everyone went there. No one can ride that. In the early days of MotoGP, no one could ride that thing. And that boy put titles together on it. So, and then on the Honda, it was just fucking another world. But
yeah, but I'm going to put it like this to you. Valentino is the only rider going from the fastest bike on the grid to almost the slowest bike on the grid and won championships back to back.
Yes, in a different era.
But he won the first race with the Yamaha. And destroyed Biaggi's career. Completely destroyed his career.
And that was the time when the rider made a difference on the bike, where the riders don't make as much difference on the bike. You used to look at Valet.
I'm joking. Yeah.
The
rider made a big difference.
No, I think he is, but I don't know if you could say he's the greatest of all time.
Valentino fan. I'm a massive Valentino fan.
So I have one of his knee sliders somewhere hidden away here.
Oh fuck! You have so next the podcast that we do, the episode that we do this topic about champions, and we can talk about F1, MotoGP. We can talk Loeb and WRC.
Yeah, well, WRC, and also WEC.
We could talk about
Loeb
and Loeb.
WRC.
We have Christensen on the WEC. We have many drivers we can actually talk about. We can talk about Jim Clark. It's one of the characters that I'm more... being from Portugal and not getting access to most of the stuff that you have access. I don't know if you realize that you guys there in Britain were overprivileged about knowledge about... especially about car racing, let's say. But yeah, we can talk this on the podcast. I feel that we're going to go on a tangent here and going to spend 2 hours talking.
We can also, because in all of this, you say Colin McRae.
Yeah.
Probably without doubt one of the most talented drivers ever.
Yeah.
Just in anything.
Do you know who I relate him the most F1 wise? Almost like Kimi. Because Kimi has that natural talent and was fast in F1, and it was his natural place. But then went and did rally. It didn't have any huge success, but he was a good rally driver. So going from F1 to rally, and actually Vettel rates him as the fastest, like the most naturally talented and fast driver that he ever raced against.
Yeah, I think Kimi definitely took over the flying fin mantle from Hakkinen of just
massively
sheer speed.
Yeah, special. So another one of that special voice in many senses. Many senses.
Okay, there you go. There's the next podcast. A 2-hour rant about the best drivers out there.
Where you educate me about Jim Clark and Sterling Moss.
I can't educate you too much on that because I'm not that old.
you have to find. You might be able to do this to find someone to talk about that era. Sterling Moss is like the last, let's say, the last 5 years or 6 years that I've been like studying him a little bit more. It's one of the most intriguing drivers for me ever in F1, in car racing, let's say, because that era of drivers they were not Formula 1 drivers, they were car racers. They did everything. They did like 80 or 90 races per year. It was crazy.
Yeah, F2 on a Saturday, F1 on the Sunday,
and then go sports cars and
then do Formula Ford on Tuesday.
Targa Florio and all that. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we have to find someone to talk about that era. Probably, maybe you can find someone.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have a think about that.
Joking. God.
I'm laughing.
Yeah, I know those people aren't.
yeah. So but yeah, it might actually be a different episode because I don't think I think we could. Yeah, we could do like 100 episodes on this topic alone, and different drivers.
We'll do that. We'll intermittently throw in the best driver ever as part 1, and then do part 2, and then do part 3, just randomly through the year when we need a rant or we think of another driver.
Yeah. Let's do that. So yeah, I've already done all social media. I'm not going to do that again. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week with the biggest rant on the podcasting world. See ya.
Cheers. Bye.
Bump, Draft and Pray is an independent podcast, and the music was by Letting Punks Know.